Hey YouTubes. Today I'm just going to talk a little bit about the JavaScript pipeline operator, what it is, why it's a good thing, why languages such as F#, Elixir, Elm, and soon, perhaps, JavaScript need this operator and what good it can do. Let's check it out. Let's see what's up. One good example of a good use case for using the pipeline operator would be decoding a JSON web token. So what we have here in this JSON web token is 3 strings. In this case, this is the middle one that we care about. It's base64 encoded. It's JSON stringified. So we need to basically undo that. So we're going to take token. We're going to use the split function. We're going to split it at the period. We're going to get it at the index of 1 because that's 0, that's 1. We're going to A to B it, which is taking it from base64 and returning it as a normal string. Then we're going to JSON.parse it. And console.log it. Okay, so we got what we wanted here. One thing you might notice is we're basically reading from right to left here, which when I had to code it, just so I could reason about it and think about it, I first split it, then I took whatever I wanted at the index, and I went backwards pretty much as I was writing it, which is less convenient. It's also less readable. So let's see how we do this with the pipeline operator. With the pipeline operator, you can only pass values to a function that take a single argument. So for example, we would need to take this method of split and create instead a function that will split a string by a period. So let's call it split at. So we do array.split period. So if we have the token here and we pipe it to split at, it should give us an array. Also, we'll need to console.log it. I wonder if I can write that in there. So there you go. We've split the string into 3 separate strings in an array. We want to do a similar thing for getting the array at a certain index. So we're going to give it the array. Going to do array 1. Pass it to the next function, array at. Let's name it array at 1. And it gives us the string that we want. From there, we can pipe it to A to B and JSON.parse. Notice this way, we're kind of reading from left to right, which is more natural for me, and we're thinking about it in a more reasonable way. We're passing it to one function and then the next, and the next, and we can write it in that order as well. So let's run this. There we go, we get foobar. So one weird thing about my implementation here is this split at function is pretty useless. It only really applies in this one use case. We're getting an array and we're splitting it by a period. What if I wanted to split it by a pipe or something else? So let's change this function to take a separator. And it will separate by, I don't know, could be a pipe, could be a comma, or whatever. And similarly with the array, we'll want that to take the index. Then we'll get the array at that specific index. The only problem is, as I've mentioned before, with the pipeline operator, your function can only take one argument. So there's a way around that, and it's called currying. So basically, we have a function that returns another function, which will do what we want to do. And it basically does the same thing. So we're going to do the same thing with array at. going to be a function which has an index as a parameter. It's going to return another function which has array as a parameter. And it's going to do the same thing as before. So what we really want in the pipeline is we want this part here. We want to split the array by the separator. So what we do is we only call the function with one parameter. That would be the period. Likewise, with array at 1, we would call it with 1, because that's the index that we want to pass into it. So if we only call array at with one argument, it's going to return this function. Let's see if this runs. There we go. So usually you won't want to write functions like array at and split at every time you want to do something like this. So there's libraries out there like Ramda, and Lodash has a version which is curried where you can use partially applied functions. One important thing to note is that the order of the arguments is really important here. So since we put the separator first, we could implicitly pass in the array through the pipeline operator. Same thing with array at. So whenever you're writing these functions, you want to be really careful with how you order your function parameters. And that's about it.